Welcome back to my YouTube channel, LC Coins World, where we journey through the fascinating world of rare and historical coins, one coin at a time. And today we will take a deep dive into a coin that carries with it the early identity of post-war Germany, the 10 Pfennig 1950J coin issued by the Federal Republic of Germany, also known as FRG, and this small piece of copper-clad metal represents so much more than just a unit of currency because it tells the story of recovery resilience and national rebirth after one of the darkest chapters in world history. The 10 Pfennig coin minted in 1950 with the mint mark J, which indicates Hamburg was part of the first generation of coins that circulated in the newly founded Federal Republic of Germany after World War II and the division of the nation into East and West, and this was not just another coin but a symbol of stability in a country that was struggling to rebuild itself economically, socially, and politically, and for millions of Germans, the simple 10 Pfennig piece became part of their daily lives, a coin they would use for bread, milk, transportation, or perhaps just for saving in small jars as the country sought to climb out of devastation and embrace a new democratic order. The coin itself was designed to be practical and durable, made from copper-clad steel, which gave it a golden appearance without the expense of precious metals, which Germany could not afford at the time, and on the obverse of the coin you would find an oak seedling, a powerful symbol of new life growth and regeneration, chosen intentionally to reflect the rebirth of the nation from the ashes of war, and this image of a young oak tree sprouting from the soil resonated deeply with the people of West Germany, as it gave them hope that their society could once again grow strong and proud, while on the reverse side of the coin, the simple yet bold lettering of Bundesrepublik Deutschland Föderal, Republic of Germany, anchored the coin firmly in the identity of the new state that was established in 1949, just a year before this coin first entered circulation. To understand the full importance of the 1950 J10 Pfennig coin, we must place it within the broader context of German history at the time. The war had ended only 5 years earlier in 1945, and Germany was divided into East and West, with the Federal Republic of Germany being established in the Western zones under democratic governance, while the German Democratic Republic, GDR, arose in the Soviet-controlled East. And money was not just money anymore, it was a tool of ideology, identity, and international recognition, and the new West German coins had to reflect both stability for the people and legitimacy for the state. The 1950 10 Pfennig coin thus came into circulation at a time when Germans were experiencing the Wirtschaftswunder, the so-called economic miracle of West Germany, a period of rapid reconstruction and growth fueled by industrial rebuilding, Marshall Plan, aid, and the hard-working spirit of the German people, and coins like the 10 Pfennig were at the center of everyday commerce, being exchanged in countless small transactions in markets, shops, and businesses across the land. And when you held a 10 Pfennig coin in 1950, you were holding not only a piece of currency, but a piece of a national story about recovery and progress. Now let us dive deeper into the minting of this coin. The J mint mark identifies Hamburg, one of the historic mints of Germany, and Hamburg had a long tradition of coin production dating back centuries, so it was fitting that it would be one of the mints producing the new democratic German currency after the war. And the mintage numbers for the 1950 J10 Pfennig were significant because the new republic needed a huge supply of circulating coins to stabilize everyday commerce, and so millions were struck. But despite this wide circulation today, finding coins in uncirculated or mint state condition is much more difficult, as most of these coins were heavily used in daily life. Collectors value the 1950 J10 Pfennig not just for its age but for its historical context. The coin marks the very first decade of West Germany's new currency system, which replaced the occupation currency and helped re-establish economic confidence. And for older generations, this coin brings back memories of post-war childhoods, rebuilding homes, shopping in local markets, and gradually seeing prosperity return to the nation. And for younger collectors today, it offers a tangible connection to a pivotal time in German and European history. From a design perspective, the oak seedling became one of the most recognized motifs on German coins for decades, symbolizing growth, resilience, and a connection to German tradition, since oak trees had long been associated with strength and endurance in German culture. And so the designers of the new currency used this symbolism as a way to inspire trust and pride among citizens, and this symbolism would carry on through later issues of pfennig coins well into the 1990s until the introduction of the euro. When it comes to the value of the 1950 J10, pfennig coin collectors today look at several factors: condition, rarity, and historical significance. While common circulated examples may be worth only a modest amount, perhaps just a few cents above face value. The real interest lies in high-grade examples, coins that were preserved in mint state condition or proof-like strikes, which can fetch significantly higher prices at auctions and among numismatists. Some rare die varieties and errors, such as misstrikes or off-center coins, can also add tremendous value and make the 1950 J10 pfennig a fascinating collectible. But beyond monetary value, the true worth of the 1950 J10 pfennig coin lies in its story, because it embodies the optimism of a nation starting over the resilience of its people and the creation of a stable democratic identity in the shadow of war and division. This coin circulated, where we journey through history one coin at a time. Today, we will take a deep dive into the 5 pfennig coin of Germany, minted in 1950 with the D mint mark. This coin belongs to the early years of the Federal Republic of Germany, also known as the FRG, and carries with it not just monetary worth, but a story that reflects the resilience, rebuilding, and transformation of a nation emerging from the devastation of World War II. When we speak of German coinage from the early post-war period, we are talking about a currency system that was not just about trade and commerce. It was about identity, stability, and the rebirth of a society that had endured some of the darkest chapters in modern history. The 5 pfennig coin, issued in 1950, stands as an artifact of that time, a small piece of metal that tells us about politics, economics, culture, and national spirit. The coin itself was struck in brass-clad steel, measuring 18 millimeters in diameter and weighing around 2 grams. It bears on its obverse side the stylized oak seedling, a symbol deeply rooted in German tradition and history. The oak tree has long represented strength, endurance, and growth, and by placing the seedling on this coin, Germany was sending a subtle message of regeneration and a hopeful future. The oak seedling was an image of the country growing again from the ashes of destruction. On the reverse side of the coin, we see the simple yet effective inscription Bundesrepublik Deutschland, the official name of the Federal Republic of Germany, along with the denomination 5 pfennig and the mint mark D, which represents the Munich Mint, one of the principal mints in post-war Germany. To understand the historical value of this coin, we need to look back at the monetary reforms of 1948, when the Deutsche Mark was introduced, replacing the Reichsmark and stabilizing the shattered German economy after years of hyperinflation, shortages, and a devastated infrastructure. The Deutsche Mark became a cornerstone of the economic miracle that followed in the 1950s and 1960s, and the 5 pfennig coin played a very real role in the everyday lives of citizens. It was used to buy bread stamps, bus fares, and little necessities of life, small in value yet important in its function. In 1950, Germany was still under the watchful eye of the Allied powers, but the foundations of sovereignty were being laid. The Federal Republic of Germany had just been established in 1949, and coins like the 5 pfennig were among the first tangible symbols of this new republic. They represented not only currency, but also legitimacy and independence. For the German people, the 1950 D mint coin in particular has significance because of its high mintage figures, which reached into the hundreds of millions, making it a common coin at the time. Yet today, collectors seek well-preserved pieces, high-grade examples, and coins with sharp details. But there is more to this coin than just its design and circulation. When we explore numismatic history, we must ask what deliberately it symbolized: both continuity and renewal. Germany had used oak motifs for centuries in its coins, medals, and heraldry, but this was a seedling, not a mighty oak tree. It was a young, fragile shoot full of potential, but not yet fully grown, just like the new republic in 1950. Economically, the 5 pfennig coin might seem small, but in the context of post-war Germany, every coin mattered. Wages were modest, savings were scarce, and coins like the 5 pfennig circulated constantly. They were in the pockets of school children who bought candy at kiosks, in the wallets of workers who paid tram fares, and in the purses of housewives carefully budgeting food expenses. These Coins became part of the rhythm of rebuilding a normal life. Numismatically, the 1950 D5 Pfennig coin is significant because of its place in a long series. The FRG continued issuing the 5 Pfennig coin until the introduction of the euro in 2002, which means that the denomination had a lifespan of over 50 years during this time. Small changes in minting techniques, metals, and mint marks created a vast area of study for collectors. But the earliest issues, like the 1950 D, are especially prized because they mark the very beginning of this journey. Now let us consider the condition, rarity, and value of these coins. While most 1950 D5 Pfennig coins are common in circulated grades, finding them in mint state condition is far less common. Uncirculated examples with full luster, sharp strikes, and no wear can command strong premiums in the collector market. Additionally, certain errors, such as off-center, strikes, die cracks, or planche flaws, are rare but highly sought after by specialists. The coin also opens a window into broader historical themes of the time. West Germany was aligning itself with Western powers, joining organizations such as the European Coal and Steel Community, which would later evolve into the European Union coins, like the 5 Pfennig. Were not just economic tokens, they were also political statements. By minting its own currency, West Germany was asserting its independence from the occupied past and its role as a sovereign nation in the new Europe. When we think of this coin today, we must also remember the human stories behind it. For the older generation, it recalls memories of childhoods spent in the 1950s and 60s buying small treats. With a handful of Pfennigs for younger collectors, it offers a tangible link to history, an object that was once held by millions and now survives as a relic of resilience and rebirth. So in today's video, we will spend time not only examining the technical details of the 1950 D5 Pfennig coin, but also exploring the broader history of Germany. In the early post-war years, we will discuss the design symbolism, minting process, circulation patterns, collector value, and historical context. By the end of this journey, you will see that even the smallest coin can tell the largest story. A story of a nation striving for stability, rebuilding trust, and laying the foundation. Home for every collector, historian, and nostalgic soul who believes that coins are more than just pocket change. They're time machines. Today, we unlock the full story behind the 1992 P. Washington quarter dollar, a coin that carries far more history, value, and meaning than most people realize. Whether you remember using it at the corner diner, vending machine, or gas station, this humble quarter is full of surprises. So sit back and relax, because we're about to take a journey through American history, coin evolution, and collector insight that will change how you see this common yet powerful piece of currency. The year was 1992. America was on the cusp of the digital revolution. Bill Clinton was elected president. The Cold War had officially ended. The economy was gradually rebounding, and American pop culture was being reshaped by everything from MTV to blockbuster movies. Amid all this change, the United States Mint quietly produced a coin that most of us didn't think twice about: the 1992 P. Washington quarter dollar. This quarter was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, designated by the P Mint mark placed just to the right of George Washington's ponytail on the obverse side. It was minted using the same copper-nickel clad composition that had been in use since 1965, following the end of silver circulation in U.S. quarters. The obverse of the coin bore the classic John Flanagan portrait of George Washington, first introduced in 1932 to mark the bicentennial of Washington's birth. By 1992, this design had become an American institution, familiar, trustworthy, and timeless. But what makes the 1992 P quarter worth talking about today isn't just its design. It's the historical moment it represents and the transition it was part of. You see, just a few years after this coin was minted, America would see a radical shift in its coinage system. In 1999, the U.S. Mint launched the 50-state quarters program, which completely transformed the way quarters looked, collected, and were perceived. That means the 1992 quarter is one of the last of its kind, part of the final wave of traditional Washington quarters before the bold new era of state-themed coins took over. Collectors and numismatists often see this coin as a bridge between two worlds, the classical and the modern. It's a symbol of the America that came before high-speed internet, smartphones, and globalization. It belongs to a time when coins still held a tactile connection to daily life. You'd feel the ridged edge of a quarter in your hand and instinctively know its worth. The sound it made when it hit the counter had weight. It was real money in a real world. Now let's talk about mintage. In 1992, the Philadelphia Mint produced over 384 million of these quarters, making it one of the more common issues. However, that doesn't mean all 1992p quarters are the same. Some mint state condition, uncirculated, or found with striking errors. MS-65 or higher grade quarters, for example, can fetch significant prices depending on their luster, strike quality, and overall eye appeal. Coin grading agencies like PCGS and NGC have certified many 1992p quarters, but only a fraction of them qualify for the highest grades. One of the most interesting things about this coin is its presence in the collector market. While many might pass it over thinking it's just another quarter, savvy collectors know that transitional years, like the early 90s, often produce varieties, die errors, and low population conditions that increase over time. These include off-center strikes, double dies, weak strikes, or coins with planchet issues. Some error coins from 1992 have sold for hundreds, even thousands of dollars at auction. The coin's reverse side features the traditional eagle design, a proud, stylized bird perched on a bundle of arrows, surrounded by olive branches, representing America's readiness for defense and its desire for peace. This design was in use from 1932 until 1998, making the 1992p quarter part of a long-standing visual narrative. To the casual observer, it's just an eagle. But to collectors, it's an emblem of continuity, pride, and tradition in American coinage. The 1992p Washington quarter also holds emotional value. For many Americans, especially those born in the 50s or 60s, this coin is a connection to personal memories. It's the kind of quarter you might have pulled from your change jar as a kid to buy a comic book or use at an arcade. It reminds people of simpler times when a coin could take you somewhere, even if just for a moment. And now, decades later, this same coin can take you back in time again, not by what it buys, but by what it represents. As we move further into the digital age, physical currency like this becomes more significant, not less. It becomes a tangible piece of history, a story you can hold in your hand. It becomes a collector's item, a teaching tool, and a family heirloom. And the 1992p quarter, because of its place in that timeline, right before the 50-state quarters, program, and during a shifting American culture, deserves its own spotlight. So what's the value of a 1992p Washington quarter today? Well, in circulated condition, it might still be worth face value 25 cents. But in high grades, with sharp details and pristine surfaces, it can be worth several dollars or more. Error coins, of course, command even higher premiums. But beyond monetary value, the real worth is in the story, the connection it creates between generations, between past and present, between memory and meaning. So the next time you come across a 1992p quarter, don't just spend it, look at it. Remember where it came from, think about the era it represents, and know that you're holding more than just change. You're holding a piece of America. Today, we take a deep dive into the history and value of a humble, yet fascinating piece of American coinage, the 1977D Lincoln penny. This coin might seem like just another cent at first glance, but when you look deeper, it carries with it decades of history. Economic transition, design evolution, minting practices, and collector significance. To truly appreciate the 1977D penny, we begin by stepping back into the social and economic atmosphere of the late 1970s. America was still adjusting to post-Vietnam realities. The Watergate scandal had left its mark, inflation was becoming a growing concern, and industries were shifting in ways that would define the next decade. Amid all of this, the Denver Mint struck millions of these copper pennies featuring the familiar bust of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, designed by Victor David Brenner in 1909 to commemorate Lincoln's 100th birthday. The portrait remained unchanged even in 1977. Because it had become iconic to generations of Americans. The reverse still carried the Lincoln Memorial, which was introduced in 1959, replacing the original wheat ears. The memorial design added a small yet meaningful detail. If you look closely with magnification, you can actually see a tiny depiction of the Lincoln statue between the columns. The composition of the 1977D penny was primarily copper with a small amount of zinc, and unlike later years where the composition shifted to mostly zinc. Due to rising copper prices, the 1977D retains its classic feel and sound when dropped on a surface. Millions of these pennies were struck, but as with any coinage, some carry unique stories in the form of errors, varieties, and high-grade examples. Collectors have reported examples with doubling, especially around the date and mint mark, as well as weak strikes, off-center impressions, and in rare cases, planchet errors. One of the most sought-after traits in the 1977D. Penny is a high-grade mint state. Example with full original luster and little to no contact marks. Grading services like PCGS and NGC have certified MS66 and higher examples, which can bring significant value, especially in registry sets. For context, most 1977D pennies in circulation are only worth face value unless they are in pristine condition or display errors. However, even common coins can become collectible, based on condition, rarity, and demand among numismatists. Now let's turn our attention to the production process. The Denver Mint was equipped with high-speed coin presses that could strike hundreds of coins per minute, yet even then human oversight and quality control played a critical role in catching defects. Sometimes these flaws slipped through the system, and these are the ones that often intrigue collectors the most. Whether it's a die clash, a double die, or a clipped planchet, each variation becomes a story frozen in metal. Beyond the minting mechanics, there is also the cultural and historical context of using the penny in 1977. Back then, a penny still had real purchasing power. You could buy a piece of candy, a stamp, or contribute to a parking meter with a handful of cents. The emotional value of these coins, especially for those who grew up in the 70s, is immense. They were a part of everyday life, slipped into lunch money payments, phone booth calls, and change from grocery stores. They carry fingerprints of a time when analog was king and every penny counted. For older Americans, the 1977D penny is a small-time capsule. It brings back memories of youth, jobs, cars, song, school, and simpler times. For younger collectors, it is an entry point into a world of discovery and appreciation for things often overlooked. Coin dealers and auction houses occasionally list 1977D. Lincoln cents in high-grade slabs, and their prices can vary. What makes one penny worth thousands and another? Just 1 cent comes down to condition, provenance, rarity, and buyer interest. And while it may never reach the fame of the 1909 SVDB or the 1955 double die, the 1977D still commands respect in the community for its role in a transitional era. So whether you have one in a drawer, a jar, or a coin folder, it's worth examining. Check for that bright red uncirculated shine or an unusual marking, and who knows, you might be holding on to a small fortune. As we wrap this journey into the 1977D, Lincoln Penny, remember that coins are more than just currency. They're storytellers, metal witnesses to history, and tokens of personal and national identity. Stay tuned on LC Coins World for more long-form explorations into the fascinating world of rare and historic coins. And as always, keep your eyes open, your change close, and your curiosity alive, where we take a journey through time, one coin at a time. Today we explore the fascinating story of the 1981 French 2 francs coin, a small yet powerful piece of French history that carries with it the weight of a nation's cultural pride, economic shifts, and political evolution. This is not just a coin. This is a chapter in the long and rich history of France, and when you hold it in your hand, you hold more than metal. You hold a story that begins centuries before it was minted. To understand the 1981 2 francs coin, we first need to step back into the origins of the franc itself. The franc has a long and storied past dating back to the late 14th century when King John II of France was captured during the 100 Years' War and a ransom was demanded. The gold franc was first issued in 1360 to help pay that ransom. The name franc itself came from the inscription Francorum Rex, meaning King of the Franks. Over the centuries, the franc became deeply woven into the fabric of French identity, evolving through various political regimes, monarchies, revolutions, and republics. The modern 2 francs coin, as we know it, in 1981, traces its direct lineage to the monetary reforms of the late 18th and early 19th centuries. During the French Revolution, the old royalist currency system was replaced by a decimal system inspired by Enlightenment ideals. The franc became the official currency in 1795, under the French First Republic. This new system made trade easier and symbolized equality and rational governance, something the revolutionaries were eager to promote. The 2 francs denomination became a key part of everyday transactions in France. Through the 19th century, France underwent enormous changes. The Napoleonic Wars spread the franc system across Europe, and French coins often bore the images of emperors or republic symbols depending on who was in power. The 2 francs coin existed in both silver and later in base metals, reflecting the shifting economic realities. By the late 19th century, under the Third Republic, France standardized its coinage, and the 2 francs coin became an everyday workhorse, used in markets, cafes, and shops from Paris to the smallest rural towns. Fast forward to the 20th century. The franc survived 2 world wars, periods of occupation and liberation, and the dramatic rebuilding of France after 1945. Post-war France experienced rapid modernization and economic growth known as the Trente Glorieuses, the 30 glorious years from 1945 to 1975. This was a time when the French people enjoyed rising living standards, the expansion of consumer goods, and a sense of national pride. In this era, the design of French coins reflected both modernism and tradition. The 2 francs coin carried the image of Marianne, the national symbol of the French Republic, representing liberty, reason, and the values of the nation. Her profile was elegant yet strong, symbolizing the enduring spirit of France. By the time we arrive at 1981, France was experiencing another moment of political and social transition. In May of that year, François Mitterrand was elected president, becoming the first socialist to hold the office in the Fifth Republic. His election brought changes in policy culture and even in the way France thought about itself economically. The late 1970s and early 1980s were challenging for much of the Western world, including France's oil crises had triggered inflation. Unemployment was rising, and industries were adjusting to global competition. Yet through these changes, the franc remained a constant in daily life, and the 2 francs coin in particular was still a familiar companion in pockets, purses, and cash registers. The 1981 2 francs coin was minted in nickel, a practical and durable metal designed to last decades in circulation. Its obverse featured the iconic head of Marianne wearing the Phrygian cap, a hat that had become a revolutionary emblem during the late 18th century. The design was crisp, the facial features confident, and idealized. The reverse side of the coin displayed the denomination 2 francs framed by olive branches and oak leaves, symbols of peace and strength. This combination was deliberate, conveying the dual aspirations of the French Republic to be both a peaceful and resilient nation. What makes the 1981 issue especially interesting to collectors is its place in the broader timeline of French coinage. During the 1980s, discussions were beginning about European integration and the eventual creation of a common currency that would decades later become the euro. Although the euro was still years away, the seeds were already being planted in political and economic discussions. The 2 francs coin of 1981 would therefore become part of the final chapters of the standalone French franc era before it eventually gave way to a shared European identity. In everyday life in 1981, this coin bought you a fresh baguette from a local bakery, a newspaper from a kiosk, or a coffee at the corner cafe. For many French citizens, the 2 francs coin was associated with simple daily pleasures. It was exchanged in open-air markets where farmers sold fresh produce, in metro stations where commuters bought tickets, and in small shops where artisans and merchants carried on centuries-old trades. To hold this coin was to hold a piece of the rhythm of French life. Collectors today look at the 1981 2 francs not only for its monetary history, but for its cultural resonance. Coins from this period often survive in excellent condition due to the durability of nickel, but finding one in uncirculated mint state is still a delight for numismatists. The design by the French engraver Henri Lagriffoul has become one of the most recognized. In modern French coinage, Lagriffoul's portrayal of Marianne is timeless, both a nod to classical art and a representation of modern Republican ideals. The story of this coin is also the story of a country standing between tradition and change. By 1981, France.
Welcome back to LC Coins World, where history is alive in the coins we carry in our hands. Today, we take you on a journey deep into the heart of a coin you may have once spent without a second thought, but now it holds layers of history and meaning that most collectors overlook. Get ready to explore the fascinating life of the 1973 Jefferson nickel. Whether you're a seasoned numismatist or someone who remembers using these coins daily, this episode will open your eyes to the hidden value and rich legacy behind one of America's most underappreciated coins. So sit back, relax, and let's go back in time with the 1973 Jefferson nickel. The story of the 1973 Jefferson nickel begins long before the coin was minted. To understand it fully, we must first understand the man it honors: Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson was not only the third president of the United States, he was also the principal author of the Declaration of Independence and a visionary whose influence on American democracy still echoes today. His image was chosen to appear on the nickel beginning in 1938, replacing the buffalo nickel which had been in circulation since 1913. In 1938, a national design competition was held by the United States Mint to find a new image for the 5-cent coin. Artist Felix Schlag won the competition with the left-facing portrait of Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello, Jefferson's famous Virginia home, on the reverse. Schlag's design would become one of the longest-running designs in US coin history, remaining largely unchanged until 2004, and that includes the 1973 version, which carries this same iconic imagery. The year 1973 was an important moment in American history. The nation was going through significant political tension with the Watergate scandal building momentum. Vietnam was still in the headlines. The oil crisis was looming, and the economy was dealing with both inflation and unemployment. In the middle of all this uncertainty, Americans went about their daily lives using coins like the Jefferson nickel for everyday purchases: sodas, newspapers, postage, and more. It's easy to forget that in your pocket during those turbulent times, there might have been a coin silently passing through history. The 1973 Jefferson nickel was minted at two major locations, Philadelphia and Denver. The Philadelphia mint coins do not have a mint mark, while the Denver coins carry the small D mark. There were no nickels minted in San Francisco that year for general circulation, but there were special proof coins produced for collectors with an S mint mark. These proof coins were struck on polished dies using specially prepared planchets and have a brilliant mirror-like finish. In total, over 384 million Jefferson nickels were minted in 1973, including both Philadelphia and Denver strikes. That means the coin is not rare in terms of mintage volume. However, the real story lies in the details: coin condition, minting errors, and historical context. Collectors seek out coins in mint state condition, especially those graded Ms. 65 and above by professional grading services. Finding a 1973 Jefferson nickel with full steps on Monticello on the reverse side is a key sign of a strong strike and brings premium value. Full steps mean that all 6 steps on the building are visible without interruption, which is relatively rare and can significantly boost a coin's value. Minting errors are another fascinating aspect of the 1973 Jefferson nickel. Some examples include off-center strikes, double dies, clipped planchets, and die cracks. These errors turn ordinary coins into rare collector's items. For instance, a 1973D nickel with an off-center strike of more than 10% can fetch several times its face value. A doubled die obverse showing doubling in Jefferson's I or lettering would be even more valuable depending on the severity and visibility of the error. Now, let's talk about composition. Like most nickels from the mid-20th century, the 1973 Jefferson nickel is composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel. It weighs 5 grams and has a diameter of 21.2 millimeters. There is no silver content in this coin, although sometimes collectors confuse older nickels with wartime nickels from 1942 to 1945, which did contain silver. The 1973 nickel was purely a base metal coin. made for everyday transactions. As we go deeper into this coin story, we must acknowledge its place in culture. For many people, the Jefferson nickel was the first coin they handled as children. It was given in change at local diners and soda fountains. It was saved in piggy banks and coin jars across America. It's a coin that lived quietly in pockets and purses across the country, but also in the background of some of America's most defining moments. The simplicity of the design, the consistency of the strike, and the value it held for so long made it a true part of American life. Coin collecting surged in popularity in the 1970s and 1982, which means many. 1973 nickels were pulled from circulation and stored in albums. Today, it's not unusual to find circulated versions of the coin with visible wear. However, finding one in pristine, uncirculated condition is a different story. The passage of time, natural wear, and mass circulation have made high-quality examples harder to find, making them more appealing to collectors now than ever. Let's not forget about the Jefferson nickel's role in the broader narrative of U.S. coinage. It represents the bridge between traditional coin designs and modern coinage changes that would begin just a few years later. By 2004, the Jefferson nickel underwent major design updates, including a new obverse portrait and different reverse scenes to honor the Lewis and Clark expedition, but the 1973 version remains a strong example of the classic look of mid-century American coinage. And if you're wondering whether your 1973 Jefferson nickel is worth anything more than 5 cents, here's the reality. Most circulated versions are worth face value or slightly more, but uncirculated coins, especially those with full steps, can be worth anywhere from $5 to over $100, depending on condition and rarity. Error coins, as we discussed earlier, can be worth even more. As you hold this coin, or look for it in your change, remember that you're holding a small yet powerful piece of American history. The 1973 Jefferson nickel may seem simple, but it reflects a nation navigating change, holding on to tradition, and preparing for a new era. It is a coin of the people, a coin of memory, and a coin that still holds value both financially and historically. So whether you're a lifelong collector or just now realizing the stories behind the coins in your drawer, the 1973 Jefferson nickel is worth a second look. It's more than metal. It's memory preserved in copper and nickel. Welcome back to my YouTube channel LC Coins World, where history lives in your hands through the coins we carry and collect today. We explore one of the most iconic pieces of American pocket change, the 1969 Washington quarter dollar coin that has quietly traveled through decades of U.S. history and holds far more significance than meets the eye. The 1969 Washington quarter is part of a series that began in 1932 to honor the 200th birthday of George Washington, the first president of the United States. The original design was created by sculptor John Flanagan and has become one of the longest-running designs in U.S. coinage history. His profile of Washington facing left with the word "Liberty" above and the national motto "In God We Trust" on the obverse has remained a cultural and patriotic symbol throughout generations. The reverse design originally featured an eagle with spread wings clutching arrows above olive branches, representing both military strength and peace. This design was deeply rooted in the nation's founding principles. By 1969, the quarter had already seen over 3 decades of minting, and the nation itself was undergoing massive change. The 60s were a time of social upheaval, political movements, and economic shifts, and the coins in circulation reflected those transitions in subtle yet meaningful ways. 1969 marked 1 year after the end of silver quarters, which stopped being produced for circulation in 1964. Following the Coinage Act of 1965, the act removed silver from dimes and quarters to preserve the nation's silver reserves and introduced clad coinage, a layered composition of copper and nickel. The 1969 Washington quarter is composed of outer layers of 75% copper and 25% percent nickel bonded to a pure copper core. This shift to clad coins was a turning point in U.S. coinage and signified a move into the modern era. The 1969 quarters were struck at two major U.S. mints, the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. Those struck at the Denver Mint carry the small d mint mark on the obverse side just to the right of Washington's ponytail. The Philadelphia issues bear no mint mark. Both types are common in circulation, but finding high grade examples in mint state condition, especially Ms. 65 or higher, has become increasingly rare due to the heavy usage these coins received over time. What makes the 1969 Washington quarter even more intriguing is the range of errors and varieties that have been discovered by collectors over the decades. Some examples feature double dies on the obverse, where elements like the date or the word Liberty appear slightly doubled under magnification. These double die errors can be extremely valuable, especially in higher grades and with strong doubling. Other errors, such as off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or die cracks, are also sought after and can greatly increase a coin's value depending on severity and clarity. From a numismatic standpoint, the 1969 quarter represents more than just 25 cents. It tells a story of a transitional era in U.S. monetary history. It was minted during the Vietnam War era under the presidency of Richard Nixon, and during a time when Americans were increasingly aware of the economic changes happening around them. Inflation was becoming a national concern, and the buying power of a quarter was very different from what it had been even a decade prior. This little coin was part of every American's daily experience, from vending machines to parking meters to phone booths. It had a presence in every pocket and every purse. In the collector market today, most circulated 1969 quarters have only face value, but as mentioned earlier, those in uncirculated condition, especially from original mint sets or proof sets, can command premium prices. Collectors seek quarters that retain their original luster, have minimal contact marks, and exhibit sharp detail. These are often submitted to grading services like PCGs and NGC for authentication and encapsulation. The coin's value can jump significantly with a high-grade certification and any presence of rare errors. One interesting aspect of this coin is its place in the broader timeline of U.S. coinage. By the end of the 1960s, America was already looking ahead to new designs and commemoratives, but the Washington quarter remained a constant presence through the bicentennial era and beyond until 1999, when the state quarters program began. The 1969 issue stands as a bridge between the silver coinage of the past and the modern thematic coinage of the 21st century. It holds a special place in the hearts of those who lived through the 60s and 70s, as well as in the albums of collectors who understand its context and rarity. To fully appreciate the 1969 Washington quarter is to look beyond its face value and into its role in everyday life, in the stories it silently witnessed, and in the historical legacy it continues to carry for numismatists, history buffs, and casual collectors alike. This coin offers an invitation to connect with the past through something small, tangible, and profoundly American. So as we dive deeper into this incredible coin throughout the video, we will explore everything from its minting process and metal composition to real auction records, errors, and collector demand. We'll look at how the 1969 quarter fits into U.S. history both economically and culturally, and why it still matters today, over 50 years later. This journey is about more than money. It's about meaning. Stay with us here on LC Coins World as we uncover the story of the 1969 Washington quarter dollar and rediscover why this little coin deserves a big place in history. From a numismatic standpoint, the 1969 quarter represents more than just 25 cents. It tells a story of a transitional era in U.S. monetary history. It was minted during the Vietnam War era under the presidency of Richard Nixon, and during a time when Americans were increasingly aware of the economic changes happening around them. Inflation was becoming a national concern, and the buying power of a quarter was very different from what it had been even a decade prior. This little coin was part of every American's daily experience, from vending machines to parking meters to phone booths. It had a presence in every pocket and every purse. In the collector market today, most circulated 1969 quarters have only face value, but as mentioned earlier, those in uncirculated condition, especially from original mint sets or proof sets, can command premium prices. Collectors seek quarters that retain their original luster, have minimal contact marks, and exhibit sharp detail. These are often submitted to grading services like PCGs and NGC for authentication and encapsulation. The coin's value can jump significantly with a high-grade certification and any presence of rare errors. One interesting aspect of this coin is its place in the broader timeline of U.S. coinage. By the end of the 1960s, America was already looking ahead to new designs and commemoratives, but the Washington quarter remained a constant presence through the bicentennial era and beyond until 1999, when the state quarters program began. The 1969 issue stands as a bridge between the silver coinage of the past and the modern thematic coinage of the 21st century. It holds a special place in the hearts of those who lived through the 60s and 70s, as well as in the albums of collectors who understand its context and rarity. To fully appreciate the 1969 Washington quarter is to look beyond its face value and into its role in everyday life, in the stories it silently witnessed, and in the historical legacy it continues to carry for numismatists, history buffs, and casual collectors alike. This coin offers an invitation to connect with the past through something small, tangible, and profoundly American. So as we dive deeper into this incredible coin throughout the video, we will explore everything from its minting process and metal composition to real auction records, errors, and collector demand. We'll look at how the 1969 quarter fits into U.S. history both economically and culturally, and why it still matters today, over 50 years later. This journey is about more than money. It's about meaning. Stay with us here on LC Coins World as we uncover the story of the 1969 Washington quarter dollar and rediscover why this little coin deserves a big place in history, where every coin tells a story and every penny takes you back in time. Do you remember the simple days when pennies actually bought something real? Maybe you remember reaching into your pocket as a kid and pulling out a copper coin with the image of Abraham Lincoln staring proudly into the distance. That wasn't just change, it was history in your hands. And one of those pennies might just have been the 1979 Lincoln penny. In 1979, America was going through change. Inflation was rising, gas prices were biting, and everyday families were adjusting to a new pace of life. But one thing remained the same: the humble Lincoln cent, a coin that held its ground for generations. Minted in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, this penny featured the same iconic portrait of President Abraham Lincoln that had been introduced in 1909 to honor his 100th birthday. But beyond the design, the 1979 penny carried the spirit of an era. It witnessed the stories of working Americans, young dreamers, veterans, homemakers, and students. It passed through grocery stores, jukeboxes, church collection plates, school vending machines, and even the palms of proud parents rewarding kids for their first chores. Today, we're not just looking at a coin, we're looking at a legacy. From its composition of 95% copper to its possible mint errors and collectible conditions, the 1979 Lincoln penny has become more than just pocket change. It's become a memory, a mirror of time, and for some collectors, a hidden treasure. 1979 Lincoln penny, a coin that millions of Americans carried in their pockets, spent at corner stores, saved in jars, and perhaps even passed down from one generation to the next. This humble copper coin may seem ordinary at first glance, but when you peel back its surface, it reveals a world of history, design, politics, minting evolution, and economic significance that spans generations. The 1979 Lincoln cent stands as a continuation of the Lincoln Memorial reverse design, first introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of President Abraham Lincoln's birth. Designed by Frank Gasparo, the reverse of the coin features the Lincoln Memorial, while the obverse portrait of Lincoln, created by Victor David Brenner, has graced the penny since 1909, the longest-running design in United States coinage history, and by 1979 it had already been in use for 70 years. Still going strong, still symbolic, still representing the values and legacy of one of America's most iconic leaders. To understand the 1979 Lincoln penny fully, we need to examine the context of the times. The late 1970s were marked by economic uncertainty, rising inflation, and a changing global landscape. The United States Mint was adjusting to rising metal prices, shifting public demand, and growing technological advancements. The 1979 Lincoln cent was struck primarily in Philadelphia with no mint mark, and in Denver marked with a small d. Below the date, millions upon millions were produced, but within those mass strikes lie hidden varieties, small errors, and rarities that collectors now cherish. Some coins from this year feature minor double dies, misaligned dies, or weak strikes, which over time have grown significantly in collector interest. More than just a piece of currency, the 1979 penny holds a place in history, representing the last full year before the dramatic shifts of the 1980s in U.S. coinage and economy. For the seasoned numismatist and the casual enthusiast alike, the 1979 Lincoln cent becomes more than a coin. It becomes a marker of time, a cultural artifact, and a tangible link to a nation's past. In this video, we will break down the full history of the 1979 Lincoln penny, from its metal composition changes to the transition from high copper to zinc alloy in the early 1980s, from the minting process at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints to the production of proof coins at San Francisco. We will explore the evolution of the design, its symbolism, and how collectors today identify high-grade examples that can sell for premiums at auction. We will also look at the legacy of Abraham Lincoln on coinage, and how this cent preserved his memory in everyday transactions across the country. By the time we reach the end of this deep dive, you will not only understand the value of the 1979 Lincoln penny, but also appreciate the role it played in American life, from school vending machines to veterans who saved them during military service. This coin was present in person. Now, decades later, it sits quietly, where we explore the legacy of coins that have shaped nations and inspired collectors for generations. Today, we take a deep journey into the history, design, significance, and value of the 1961 Jefferson nickel, a 5-cent coin that continues to capture the interest of numismatists and history lovers alike. From its political context to minting techniques, hidden varieties, and collector appeal, this coin tells a story far deeper than its face value suggests. The 1961 Jefferson nickel was part of a coin series that began in 1938, when it replaced the Buffalo nickel, which had circulated from 1913 to 1938. The Jefferson design was chosen through a competition organized by the United States Mint, and the winning artist was Felix Schlag. Schlag's design featured a left-facing profile of Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, on the obverse, while the reverse showcased a depiction of Jefferson's home, Monticello, a neoclassical structure located in Virginia. The original design remained relatively unchanged through the years, with only slight modifications introduced for clarity or minting improvements. By 1961, the United States was in a dynamic period of its history. The Cold War was at its peak. John F. Kennedy had just taken office, and the nation was shifting socially and economically. This atmosphere of change formed the background to the coins minted that year, including the Jefferson nickel, struck primarily at the Denver Mint, as indicated by the small d mint mark on the reverse, The 1961 Jefferson nickel is of particular interest to collectors because of its mintage volume, striking quality, and several die variations. Over 229 million Jefferson nickels were struck at the Denver Mint in 1961, making it one of the higher mintage years in the series. Although this volume suggests the coin is relatively common in circulated condition, uncirculated examples, especially those in Ms. 65 and above, are harder to find due to weaknesses in the strike and poor planchet quality. These minting inconsistencies are what make high-grade examples significantly more valuable among collectors. The Jefferson nickel is composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving it a durable silvery appearance. Although the coin contains no silver, its composition makes it resistant to wear and ideal for everyday transactions. Its diameter is 21.2 mm with a weight of 5 grams and a plain edge. The metal composition and specifications remained consistent throughout most of the series until the wartime nickels of 1942 to 1945, when silver was temporarily introduced due to metal shortages. Collectors who pursue the 1961 Jefferson nickel often pay close attention to strike quality. Full steps is a designation given by grading agencies such as PCGs and NGC to coins that display complete and uninterrupted steps on the Monticello building on the reverse. This detail is notoriously difficult to find on many dates in the Jefferson series, especially the 1961 which is well known for weak strikes and worn dies. Therefore, 1961 Jefferson nickels with full steps command a premium in the collector market and can fetch significantly higher prices depending on condition. The Jefferson nickel series is also popular among error collectors, and the 1961 coin is no exception. Some known varieties include die cracks, repunched mint marks, and off-center strikes. There are even examples of coins with double die obverses or reverses. Though these are rare, any such variety can dramatically increase the value of an otherwise common coin, making the 1961 Jefferson nickel a rewarding hunt for sharp-eyed collectors. Beyond technical details, this coin represents a broader piece of American history. The early 1960s were a time of technological innovation. Civil rights movements and political transformation. Coins from this period carry with them a sense of being witness to change and continuity. The Jefferson nickel itself stands as a symbol of American values of liberty, democracy, and architectural beauty, embodied in both its subject and design. The legacy of the Jefferson nickel series continued until 2004, when the Westward Journey series temporarily replaced it to commemorate the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark expedition. Still, the original Schlag design returned briefly before being permanently modified in 2006 to include a new forward-facing Jefferson portrait. The 1961 Jefferson nickel therefore remains one of the many chapters in the long and evolving story of American coinage, reflecting mid-century design sensibilities and minting practices. As a collector, you might encounter the 1961 Jefferson nickel in circulation, coin shops, or estate collections. While circulated examples hold minimal monetary value, they offer historical value and a tangible connection to the past. On the other hand, coins preserved in original rolls or found in mint state condition can be worth considerably more, especially when certified by top grading agencies. Grading plays a vital role in determining the market value of this coin. A 1961 Jefferson nickel in average circulated condition may be worth just face value or slightly above, but coins graded Ms. 65 or higher can range from tens to hundreds of dollars depending on visual appeal and strike quality. The presence of full steps can easily double or triple a coin's value, making detailed examination under magnification an essential part of evaluating your collection. For those interested in completing a full Jefferson nickel set, the 1961 remains an accessible yet challenging date due to the need for high-quality examples to complete registry sets. In fact, Many collectors enjoy the thrill of upgrading their Jefferson collections over time as they come across better struck or more visually appealing coins. In closing, the 1961 Jefferson nickel is more than just a 5-cent piece. It is a compact artifact of American heritage representing political vision, artistic skill, and industrial precision.